Dlatego!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ferret 64 with me, your host, Yemmy the Ferret. How's everyone doing this week? I've been doing pretty good. Burnt my tongue on some hot chocolate yesterday, so that's feeling a bit weird. Anyway, Ferret 64 is the podcast about video game news, occurrences, first impressions, and much more. And today we got a pretty packed episode for you. And we're going to start off with my final thoughts. You could call it a final review for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Let's jump right in. Assassin's Creed Mirage is a trip down memory lane in a lot of ways. Not only is the game more reminiscent of the earlier Assassin's Creed projects, but it seems to take a lot of inspiration from the combat and stealth mechanics of those earlier games, mainly in the stealth aspect where the game is much more based around stealthing through areas and trying to get through different encounters without raising an alarm. And even if you do raise an alarm, it's not the end of the world, unlike in most other Assassin's Creed games. When the alarm is raised, only the group of enemies around you actually know where you are, and the rest of them either eventually will meander to the area or won't come to the area at all because they're in a completely different part of a restricted area or whatever you were in at the moment, which is actually something that I kind of like, even though sometimes it's a bit bizarre seeing like an enemy standing 5 feet away who isn't exactly in the right area to be called over by his counterparts who are fighting with you. I think that for the most part it works pretty well, and it's actually a pretty cool mechanic. And it doesn't completely derail or train wreck a level that you're playing. You don't have to restart because there's just so many enemies. You don't have to, fight every single enemy on the map. You can actually go back to stealth and work your way back to your main objective, which is cool. I really like that about it. And this game does, as Mirage is definitely a hybrid between older style and newer style, even though there's a majority of older style mechanics gracing this game. There are a bunch of newer gameplay mechanics that are more reminiscent of Origins or Odyssey or Valhalla, including enemy health bars. There's a good amount of UI elements that are very reminiscent of the newer games. Obviously, you have a falcon who comes in, and you can see the area and mark enemies before you enter into an enemy encampment, or it allows you to, or helps you find collectibles and other things as well. So it's a bit of a hybrid, and I do like that aspect of the game as well. I think that it does a pretty good job at mixing the two different eras of Assassin's Creed and forming a pretty cohesive hybrid of the two eras. Obviously, there's been more than two eras of Assassin's Creed. You're just thinking about it from my memory. Yeah, obviously you have the Ezio era, which was pretty much on the ground, very story-driven, heavily focused on kind of like bombastic set pieces while also being very stealthy. And then you have the ship era, which starts at Assassin's Creed 3. A lot of people forget about that there are ship battling mechanics in Assassin's Creed 3. Bare bones, but they are there. And that lasts all the way up through Rogue and even kind of graces the tip of the newer era. But there is that era in between there, which is the back to basics, I call it, which is Unity and Syndicate, where they went back to a standard city, a standard size map, and whatever. And that's kind of where Assassin's Creed kind of started to peter out. And then the new era, I call it, is Assassin's Creed Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, which are massive maps, RPG mechanics galore, a new combat system. The stealth is optional, especially in Valhalla at times. But Mirage is kind of the start of a new era, which is the hybrid era, in my opinion. And we'll see how other games in the Assassin's Creed series turn out. Obviously, Mirage is just the tip of the iceberg. We'll see what happens with these new games that are coming around. There's the Jade mobile game coming. There's the one that is called Hex, which is like I don't know, like a creepy looking one. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to be. Then we also have the one that's going to be based, I believe, there's one going to be based in China, I believe, which was, I forget what the name of the project was, but we have a couple of Assassin's Creed games that are on the cusp. They're coming around. So we'll see how they incorporate the different styles of Assassin's Creed. And if it works out as well as Mirage, then we're looking for a nice era of Assassin's Creed. The main thing that you're probably wondering about is, well, how's the story in this one? You don't really see too much about the main character and the rest of the story mode from the trailers. And I would say that Bazim and the story in Baghdad is fairly good. I enjoyed it for the most part. It does incorporate the hunt down the hidden order members that the newer Assassin's Creeds do have, which in this one it's much more scaled back. Baghdad is just one city with a bunch of rings around it of kind of like how there's a castle and then the peasants live around it. Except Baghdad is set up, there's the castle in the middle, and then there's like two rings. One's a bazaar ring, and one is like a house ring. And then you can go into the desert, and there's a few scattered places to visit around in the desert. But it's not a terribly large map. It's actually my kind of map. Maybe it's a little bit smaller than I was expecting, but it's just the right size. It gives you enough environment to explore. It feels very reminiscent of like Brotherhood or even Assassin's Creed 2, where once you leave that main city, you go into kind of like this plains area. There's these open areas, and then you go to the next city or the next encampment. But in Mirage, it's just one map, so you're not loading into the next sections like you do in most of the other older Assassin's Creed games. So it feels much more lively at times. It definitely. I like the scale of the map. There's a bunch of different environments to go to, from dunes, the small cities, to small villages that are like halfway sunken underwater, to kind of like a Sahara kind of environment. And of course, there's the main city, which is just densely populated with tons of people, NPCs walking around, doing their own thing. And I think that for the most part, they did a great job of making the city feel alive and not making it like barren, but also not making it like so like unrealistically like packed, you know. So one of the main changes of Mirage from other Assassin's Creed games is when you get your wanted level up, obviously more guards will notice you and they'll send out like super buff dudes with high skill level to try and take you down if you get all the way in the red on that. But the way to get your notoriety down, sure, you can tear down posters, which is a classic thing from Assassin's Creed. One of those things that they phased out once, I believe once Unity came around, they phased it out, or maybe it was, well, I forget where they phased it out, because they had it in Black Flag, which I thought was kind of ridiculous, seeing as that map is so big and there's so many islands to go to. Like, oh, why would this island have a wanted poster of me? I don't know. But yeah, they you could tear down posters, which is very reminiscent of the older games, which I like. And then you can also bribe different officials and stuff like that to decrease it by a large amount. And I'm not talking about bribing them with money, because in Mirage you actually bribe the people with like these tokens, these favor tokens that you get. So there's a whole bunch of them. One of them is like, oh, I don't know. One of them's like a merchant token, where it can actually reduce prices in the shop. And then you can also use that coin for multiple other things as well. Like there's also merchant chests that you put the coin in and it opens up and it gives you a bunch of resources. So there's a lot of stuff to do with these tokens. not they don't just have one function. There's a good amount to do with them, and in order to get like there's like 4 or so different tokens in the game that allow you to do different things. Like there's one that allows you to like hire mercenaries to fight for you or distract guards. There's one that you get the musicians that also like gathers a bunch of people and you can distract guards with that. And there's a whole slew of other ones to use. Yeah, you get them by completing these random contracts that appear on the bounty boards inside the assassins' whole hideouts. So from killing, assassinating someone to guarding someone as they walk along a path to doing a whole bunch of different things. They are ever present. You can do them whenever you want to. So that's that. The main part of this game that people probably worried about was the assassination skill that allows Bazim to literally insta-kill like 4 or 5 guards at the same time with his assassin ability. And personally, I didn't really utilize it too much, but there were parts where I was like, oh, I should probably use this. And once I upgraded it all the way, if there was a few guys can shield close to each other, I would just automatically use it. But I wasn't heavy-handed with it. Maybe now that I'm done with the game, I might be a bit more heavy-handed, just because it's like, well, I don't want to have to deal with stealthing around this section for 5 minutes instead of a minute just doing the thing. But honestly, it's not really that. I mean, it is overpowered. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like that overpowered that I'm like, oh, this was a terrible thing to put in here. It actually helps out a lot in the game. It's actually very useful at times. And there's some targets you have to take out that have like 3 or 4 guards around them. So, being able to take them all the guards out and then 1v1 the main guy is very very good idea. Or if you have enough, you can just take out the guard that you want to take out and then run. It's one of those things that's I'm indifferent about it. I think that's fine. I think that it's in there and it's fine. I didn't overuse it, but it was very helpful throughout the game when trouble presented itself. Also, like the combat in the game, it's very like you block or parry and then you insta kill the dude in front of you. Of course, there's harder enemies, so you need to dodge around and hit from behind and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean the combat's fine. Yeah, I didn't really have any trouble with it, but I also didn't really like make me excited to enter into combat. I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I really don't care. It works for what it's worth. It's pretty basic, all things considered. Like, how in the newer Assassin's Creed games they have like these abilities, like the Spartan charge and whatever that you can call off. That isn't in this game, but you do have several gadgets that you can use to help you in stealth and combat. Some of them are like most of them actually knock out enemies, so they're non-lethal. There's a trap that you can place on the ground. There's a smoke bomb you can let go off. There's a blow dart that puts enemies to sleep, or you can upgrade it to make them go berserk and stuff like that. But then there's also the throwing knife, which is what most people are probably going to use when they're doing anything in this game, because if you hit someone in the head, it's usually a one-hit kill, unless you didn't upgrade your throwing knives. So those are very useful, and you can actually upgrade those to disintegrate a body after a few seconds, which is very helpful when in congested areas with a lot of enemies. Speaking of congested areas, if you kill a guard or multiple guards when there's people around, they will report you, and your notoriety will go up faster than if you just engage them in closed combat, which is something that is actually very cool. Because the people of the city and the surrounding areas don't see the guards as a menace like some cities that we were in do. So, you remember in Assassin's Creed 3, the colonists don't really care if you kill redcoats in the area around them. They don't really care. I mean, some of them will run away, but for the most part, they're like, whatever. It's a British soldier. And the same thing can be said for, I think, in Assassin's Creed Revelations as well. So like the people in the area don't know that like the Templars, or what they used to be called, the order, is behind everything. They just know that the Bezim, or someone who looks like him, killed their leader. And yeah, I mean, so when people see a guard get killed, it's a bit more of a problem than in other Assassin's Creed games, which is nice. I like that because it makes it more realistic. It adds that little bit of realism that the game does need at times. Um, so yeah, the story is good. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but towards the end, it was getting a bit too convoluted for me. There were some weird things that happened at the end. I'm not going to spoil anything, of course, but it kind of I do think it kind of floundered towards the end because it was trying to do some crazy weird plot line. Um, and like throughout the rest of the game, like the story's good. Like you're just hunting down the agents and you're building up the assassins and blah 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 blah. But then at the end of the very end of the game, it was just kind of weird. I wasn't a super big fan of the ending of the game. Pretty much from the final assassination to the end, I was just kind of like, I don't know, unimpressed is maybe the word I'm looking for. I was just kind of like indifferent, I guess I could say. I was mixed very much on the ending of the game. So, um, I hope that doesn't put you off from playing it because the rest of the story is pretty good. I enjoyed the rest of the story. I think that the dynamic between the characters are good. I think the voice acting is pretty well done for the most part. Bazim as a character, I know he was in Valhalla, but I didn't really get. I mean, I got to the point where you meet him, but I didn't really interact with him in that game. So I was relatively happy with how Bazim was played, especially after the actor tried to stop sounding young because the first part of this game is like when Bazim and his friend are younger. So he puts on an older voice in the second, once you get past that opening part, which sounds a lot better. And like most games that have been coming out recently, there is a hurdle of getting past that first mission or something like that, where it's just like a tutorial and it's very handholdy, and they're trying to make the actors seem a little bit younger so that they have a change in voice when they're older and blah 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 blah. So once you get past the training and become an assassin, that's where the game does like really open up and it gives you so much to do, and I really like that aspect. Unlike and unlike Starfield or something like that, I feel like the opening is fine. I think that it works for the most part. It's one of those things. It's like, okay, you got to play the game like an hour, and after you get past the training, which is going to be a bunch of stuff that you probably already know or already understand, that's when the game does open up and it becomes much better. It actually comes to form, I guess you would say. Another part of this game, which I found really interesting, is the fact that you upgrade your weapons by finding things inside chests. Obviously, you get regular materials, but there's these big chests that you get that have contracts that allow you to upgrade certain weapons, specific weapons. So if you don't find the right contract for the weapon you're using, you have to search around for the other another chest to try and find it, which I thought was pretty cool. It gives you a reason to go around and hunt the chests, which I did do. When I stopped playing the game, I really didn't really have a lot to do other than these little enigma codes, which are these pretty much just treasure maps. You find where the hidden item is, and it gives you a certain piece of gear or something special. Um, so I was going to start doing those, and I was just like, yeah, I'm like I'm when the game ended and I had finished finding all the treasure and all the collectibles that I could at the time. I didn't like super go into it, but I found most of the ones that I wanted to find, and I was like, oh, I was satisfied enough. And I don't know if the game is enjoyable enough after the story ends to really for me to go for like the 100% in the game. It's highly doable, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things. It's like I don't know. I think the platinum trophy for this one might, or the 100% might drag it down a little bit, because then you have to search for all these things on the map, and you have to specifically search out different items and different characters and pickpocket different people, and I don't know if I want to do that. Like the hunt for getting all the synchronization points and getting all the chests was enough for me, and I was satisfied by the end of it. But I don't think that like the combat is strong, sure, but it's not strong enough to keep me super into it. The stealth is good, but it's not strong enough to keep me into it. And I'll probably go back and play a little bit more after after all is said and done. But I don't know if I don't know if I'm gonna work for the 100% in the game just because it's good, but it's not like grabbing me like Assassin's Creed 2 or Brotherhood or Assassin's Creed 4 or Rogue or there's so many other games that I can think of that are like, yeah, these ones grab you and they keep you in and they give you like such varied environments that you want to explore every little nook and cranny. Whereas with Mirage, you get the city and you get the outskirts, and there's a lot of fun stuff to do and a lot of random things to find. But yeah, it's just that baseline good that it doesn't do anything super special to bring it over the top and make me go, oh, I gotta get the platinum for this one. And like I said, maybe I will sometime in the future, or maybe sometime relatively soon before Spider-Man 2 comes out. But at this point, I'm satisfied, and I think I've milked it as much as I wanted to at this point. Another thing I forgot to mention is when you do pickpocket people, there's a little mini game that plays. You have to press the button at the right time, or you fail and they discover that you're trying to pickpocket them. This comes into play when people have like these rare artifacts that you need to bring back to a certain character, and the timing on them is so strict. It's pretty fun. It's actually a pretty cool mechanic. Of course, when you fail, it's a little bit frustrating because you gotta run away and then come back like 5 minutes later. But for the most part, I think it's a fun way to do pickpocketing, because the old games is just like hold down O and walk through a crowd and you'll get tons of money. Whereas in this one, you're really only stealing from the people who have like fancy clothing on, and when you do, it's not just a quick like, ooh, grab that and go. There's a little bit more thought put into it, I guess you could say, which I do like. um. Other than that, I did run into a fair amount of little glitches. Not only with like the camera being at weird angles at times, which I couldn't help, but there was times where like Bazim would fly across the map. I shit you not. I was inside of a building and I guess I randomly jumped up on something, but there was enemies around me and it seemed to glitch me out and then throw me to the wall, which was kind of weird. There, also, towards the end of the game, I was climbing up something, and Bazim just magically started levitating over to the other side of the map, which caused me to get a game over because I dropped from too high of a height. So there are little things like that that I'm sure that they'll be able to fix with time. It's probably some overlooked things that will be fixed. It's one of those things that you can't get it all, of course. You wish that they would get it all, but they can't. But the game was in general just a little bit. Not just a little bit glitchy, but also a little bit like hectic at times because it does have that old Assassin's Creed jank for the free running where it's like, oh, I'm trying to go into this bush, but Bazim keeps jumping up into this climbable area, and I'm trying to hide from an enemy. And as I said before, it's not like it's detrimental to get caught because it's only the enemies in the area, but it's still kind of annoying, especially if you have like a secondary objective of don't get caught or don't get into open combat or don't get hurt, right? And I had that happen multiple times where it's like, oh, I just want to climb down, and Bezim will just jump over a gap, or he'll jump up instead of going down, or just kind of sit there, and I don't know what to do, and he just won't move at all, and I'm like, why can't you climb this? It's a cross stitch window. There's plenty of handholds, but he just won't do it. So there's times like that where the parkour is a bit janky, and that's reminiscent of the old games, but it's something we didn't really need from the old games. I don't know if they designed it like that specifically. I feel like they wouldn't, but you never know. If they wanted to give it that more old school vibe, that would be one way to do it, is to give you minor frustrations when Bezum doesn't go exactly where you want him to go. Because I feel like in the newer games, they got free running down pretty well. I feel like it works pretty well. Even in like Syndicate and Unity, I mean, the free running is not, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not bad at times. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, if it makes it feel like the older game, sure. All in all, I do really like Mirage, but it doesn't go above and beyond what it is. It is love note to the past of the Assassin's Creed series. It does exactly that. It gives you a more digestible story. It gives you a smaller area to work with. It gives you less meaningless side missions to do. You get these stories of Baghdad, of course, but they're not like super boring like the ones that are in Odyssey, Valhalla, and Origins. And I always point back to that one mission in Odyssey that was just a very boring mission where all you had to do was like collect mud for a child or something like that, or collect water for a child. And it was like, wow, I'm supposed to be going up against some strange and mysterious order, and I'm getting, you know, mud water for this kid. Like, it's one of those things that's like, it doesn't have meaningless side quests. The side quests actually have some merit to them. They actually have some stuff going on, which is nice, and I do enjoy that. But like I said, it doesn't really go above and beyond the Call of Duty in this at this stage. It is just the baseline good. I wish it was better than good, but you know, a great. If I was to say it was great, I would like the parkour to be better, more consistent. I would say. And I would just kind of like scrub out some of those weird glitches that I was having, which they obviously can do. It's just probably a matter of time before they update the game and get that stuff straightened out. But other than that, I feel like the game is very much worth playing, especially if you're an Assassin's Creed fan, especially if you're an older Assassin's Creed fan. Even though it's a hybrid of the two eras of Assassin's Creed, the opening area and the newer eras, I should say. It does feel more like an older game, and I do like that for the most part. I do. So, in the end, yeah, I'm gonna land on a 4 out of 5 for this one. Could be a 4.5 if they polish the game up and take out some of those weird glitches I had. Maybe. But yeah, I guess the other thing that I would change is the ending of the game. I think that's the one other part of the game that I would kind of change. So there you go. That is the final review for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Thank you for listening. All right, let's go ahead and move on to what have I been playing this past week. I'm still kind of getting over a cold right now. I'm not as congested as I was before, but I always have this like dry, raspy feeling in my throat after a cold when I've been talking for a while. And that does lead to some coughing fits, even though I haven't really been coughing. But after talking for 27 so minutes straight, um, I do have to sometimes let out the wheezing cough and grab a drink of water real quick. But I'm feeling better. But you know what would make me feel even better is if you liked and subscribed. If you followed the podcast and rated it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave a review. I would very much appreciate that. Also, if you want to check out the final review, it's a standalone series that I cut out of this podcast, and I put it on my YouTube channel with video and the PNG tuber ferret. So if you want to check that out, it is on my YouTube channel at Yemmy the Ferret. Anyway, let's talk about Lords of the Fallen. I don't have a lot to say because I really haven't played much of the game, and I wanted to play more of it before recording this, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I am... I'm not usually the kind of person to get pulled in too much into the hype for games. But the Lords of the Fallen, everything they showed off about it, the graphics, the story, the new mechanics that they were showing off was pretty cool, and I was pretty excited. We had just played the Lords of the Fallen game from 2014, and that was actually surprisingly good. I think I ended up giving that a B tier, and I was excited to try out the new Lords of the Fallen. Obviously, Lords of the Fallen from 2014 gets a bit of a bad rap, I think. Obviously, it is a bit slow at the beginning of it all, and the enemies are very tanky. But in the end, I found the experience to be pleasant. It was a nice like roundabout map, and it was a nice story. And I thought that the combat, even though it starts off a bit punishing, I guess you could say, like slow and sloppy. Once you refine your character, get your build going, it's good to go. And it definitely was a uniquely styled kind of game. The graphics still look pretty good, all things considered, and it was a pretty uniquely made game. In the world of Souls-like games, it's pretty unique. I mean, you can't find another game quite like Lords of the Fallen out there. And when I started playing Lords of the Fallen from 2023, I immediately thought of, oh, this is Dark Souls 3. This is literally Dark Souls 3. Like, graphically, not as impressive as I was expecting from the trailers. I'm playing this on the PS5 in performance mode, and it looks like Dark Souls 3, which is not a jab at Dark Souls 3, because at the time Dark Souls 3 looked pretty good. But Lords of the Fallen looks exactly like Dark Souls 3. If I put footage of Dark Souls 3 and Lords of the Fallen 2023 next to each other, there really wouldn't be much of a difference, especially in some of the opening areas. Obviously, Dark Souls 3 has a more prominent like background, and it definitely has a more prominent style that's going for. Lords of the Fallen just seems to be following in its footsteps, which is not my favorite thing. Like, yeah, there's something to be said about being inspired by something. Obviously, I've liked games that are inspired by other ones throughout my entire life. But Lords of the Fallen loses its identity that it had back in 2014 to be more of a cookie cutter Souls-like experience, which is not what I'm looking for in this day and age. I've played plenty of Souls-likes. I've found really good ones, and I've found relatively bad ones. I've also found ones that's kind of skimmed that line of just being mediocre. And so far, Lords of the Fallen is just a mediocre Souls-like game. Sure, does it add some cool things into it? Of course, there's some cool things laced throughout it. You can go into like this other dimension, and you can do stuff in the other dimension. If you stay there too long, the enemies get progressively more aggressive. But all the different things you can do with the lantern are just kind of like sloppily done, and like it's not my favorite thing ever. This whole gimmick with the lantern, I was really hoping it was just going to be like, oh, you can see the other dimension if you lift it up in the real world, or you can go into the other world and do stuff in that world and then come back. But no, there's actually things you need to do with this lantern, like suck out enemies' souls, and you can stun them and drag them towards you with this lantern. And I'm sure that eventually I'll get used to it, but right now it just kind of feels like a shoddily put together kind of weird thing that I'm not like super jazzed about. It's just not one of those things that I'm really excited to use and utilize. They also implemented this other system of throwable items. You have to hold down a button and use a throwable item to knock down things or hit enemies with them, and you seemingly have an unlimited supply of them, which kind of negates the idea of a throwable item, because if you just keep throwing the item, just give me a gun at this point. Like, yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, okay, it's needlessly more complicated than it needs to be, and it's kind of good. I mean, I can already tell it's going to be sort of useless as the game goes on, unless there's some puzzle or story elements later on. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, because the game is so closely mirrored to other experiences that I've had in the Souls-like universe, I just feel boredom while playing it. I've seen this before. The unbeatable boss enemy, the easy first boss in the game that just kind of sets you up for the rest of the experience. The the needlessly easy tutorial for the game that you can't really die in, and if you do, it's because you're trying to die at that point. Um, it's all stuff that I've seen and done before a million times, and in better situations. And this is a $70 video game, and I feel like I'm playing Dark Souls 3 again. Which, once again, it's not a jab at Dark Souls 3, because I really liked Dark Souls 3, and I still do really like It's still one of my favorite Souls-like games. But Lords of the Fallen doesn't. Sure, there's some unique mechanics in there, but for the most part, like, I was just looking at the character select screen, and I was flipping through different characters. It's all characters that you see in Dark Souls. It's all character classes that you would see other places. When you look at the original Lords of the Fallen from 2014, there are three specific classes that are unlike anything you'd ever seen. And that is something that is like, say what you want about the original Lords of the Fallen, it has unique stuff to it. It is a unique video game, and the graphics are still impressive to this day. Lords of the Fallen 2023 looks like Dark Souls 3. It literally has that same graphical style, and it's so disappointing to me personally, because I even talked about it on this podcast where they were showing off the technical prowess of this Lords of the Fallen game. And I don't know if it's just the PS5 version of the game just looking worse for some reason next to the PC version. But when they were talking about the shadows and the lighting effects and the blah 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 blah, I was expecting the game to look more like the Lords of the Fallen from 2014. But no, this game looks very closely to Dark Souls 3. So yeah, I'm just like really put off by the game from the get go, and it all starts with that character select screen. Just doesn't look great. The character customization is very limited. There's not enough there's no unique angle. Like yeah, I just played Elden Ring last year, and this is literally like the same characters that you can create in Elden Ring, or Dark Souls or something like that. So yeah, it's been a bit disappointing in a few different ways, and I know this game is getting praise across the board, but to me personally, it just is not something unique enough to keep me interested. When Lies of P came around, and I actually decided to play that instead of going back and playing Lords of the Fallen, I was initially like, "Oh, it's way too close to Bloodborne," but then I was playing the game like, "No, no, no! This is actually like a hybrid of Bloodborne and Sekiro, of course, with its own unique aspects as well." And that has been prevalent throughout the entire experience. On top of all that, it looks great. I mean, the game looks amazing and has a great soundtrack and et cetera, et cetera. Um, and that's like everything that it's Lords of the Fallen is like opposite of everything that I like about Lies of P, where Lies of P takes these ideas from these other games and transforms them into unique gameplay styles. It puts its own spin on it, and of course, it has this really unique graphic style. And you boot up Lords of the Fallen, and it's completely the opposite. It steals its style from other games. It steals its classes from other games. It steals um, it steals its encounters and stuff like that from other games. Like it's just there's nothing super unique going on here, and the only unique thing is this lantern ability that puts you into the undead world. And even then, I feel like it kind of flounders in that aspect. I feel like it's not really as cool as they were hoping it was going to be, and yeah, I'm just not super jazzed about it. And of course, take this all with a grain of salt because I've only played about an hour of the game, but I've been turned off enough to not go back to it right away, which does say something about Lords of the Fallen. So, buyer beware at this point. It's a $70 game, and I was close to bringing it back to Best Buy and getting a refund. I really was, and I mean, I could do that up until December. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm on the cusp of it. If I don't like it the next time I play it, I'm probably going to possibly look into getting a refund for the game. So I don't know about you, but $70 is a bit pricey. All right. Next up, I played and finished Pizza Possum. I actually played this last week, but I was too sick to keep going with the segment of the show. Pizza Possum is a fun little top-down adventure, kind of closely related to Untitled Goose Game, except not as colorful or expressive or unique, I guess. Pizza Possum's not really a puzzle game. It's more of like a crazy, chaotic, grab as much food as you can before the cops get you. You play as a possum who's just trying to steal food and eat food. The more food you eat, the more keys you unlock. The more keys you have, the higher on this mountain that you can go. And each tier of the mountain gets more difficult with the enemy placement and how much food is on the map that you can eat. When you get caught, you restart at a checkpoint, but all the gates are locked behind you and in front of you, which was kind of like annoying to me, especially because sometimes you would unlock the wrong gate because as soon as you walk by one, it automatically unlocks it. So that was kind of annoying. But I mean, it's a pretty fun. It's also co-op. It's a pretty fun co-op game. You'd have multiple possums in your crew, and yeah, it's all about just eating food, pizza, fruit. There's like these big dishes that you can get. Like one's like a big fish dish, another one's like a pasta salad, and it takes multiple attempts to eat them. And your main goal is to go up to the top of the mountain and eat the King's Pizza, which I thought was going to be much more difficult than it actually was, but I actually beat the game in like 30 minutes. Of course, you can go through the game multiple times, but yeah, you know, it's just one of those games. It's like it's generally just good. I think it was like a $20. No, it was like a $15 game, which I think is relatively fine for this little indie project here. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's a 4 out of 5. It's fine. It's a 4 out of 5 on the indie scale, I guess I would say, because I also gave Mirage a 4 out of 5, but it's Mirage is on the AAA scale, Pizza Possum's on the indie scale. So yeah, it's good. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's fine. And then I also played and finished Garfield's Lasagna Party this past week, which is the Mario Party ripoff in the Garfield universe. I actually ended up getting the platinum trophy for it because it only takes getting first in every mini game. But you know, I bought this game to play with when Callus came to town. So Greedy Waffles and Callus and I played Garfield's Lasagna Party, all the way into the late night hours of the night. Anyway, I mean, in general, we had fun. I think that the game only has a handful of good mini games. I mean, there's some fun ones in there, but there's a lot of them that are just like, oh, I've seen this before, or oh, this is kind of bad. And of course, we didn't get to play all of them in one sitting. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, you have one board to play on, and the spaces on the board are just kind of like, I don't know, not really that interesting. It has like this Monopoly aspect where you get like a chance card or a mystery card or whatever. And it's like, I think they could have utilized that a little bit more throughout the game. There's also this like spinning wheel that you could spin that I feel like could have been utilized more in the game. The main goal of the game is to get as much lasagna as you can to beat the other players. There's no bonus lasagna given at the end of the board. There's no nothing like that. It's just whoever has the most at the end of 10 rounds wins. And I did win every single round, by the way. I did not win on every minigame, of course. Callus is really good at the catapult one. Greedy's surprisingly pretty good at the snowball fighting one. But there was a lot of, it was just in general, just a fun, okay time. But it doesn't, it's still a Mario Party ripoff at the end of the day. And yeah, it's not like the super best thing ever, but if you buy it for like $10, $15, I think you get your money's worth out of it, especially if you have a group of friends over. So yeah, in the end, it's like a 2.5, closer to a 3 than a 2 kind of game. I landed on a 2.5 because it is just like, I don't know, a Garfield ripoff Mario Party game. So there you go. On stream, we finished The Last of Us Part 1 and Resident Evil Revelations HD. The Last of Us Part 1, what is there really to say about it? It's a great, Last of Us just in general is a great game. In general, it's like a 5 out of 5 game. The remaster Part 1, it's still a great game, but it's a 4.5, and you know why? And it's the same reason for Spider-Man Remastered not being a 5 out of 5, and that's because the game, even though it looks beautiful, it plays pretty well. They did a lot of great stuff in there. It's glitchy. It is just a glitchy game. And some of these glitches I know because I just played the game only about 2 or so years ago on the PS4 remaster. some of these glitches, most of these glitches were not in the original game. Same thing with Spider-Man. I really did not feel the amount of glitches that were in that game happened in the original game. And I don't know why Sony keeps doing this with their remasters, but every single one that comes out is more glitchy than the last one. And it immediately makes the game lesser than the original version or the remastered version in terms of The Last of Us. So even though I can recommend The Last of Us Part 1, and I do recommend it, I would say that the original version of the game is just a little better because of the fact that it isn't as glitch filled as The Last of Us Part 1. And that's just a fact. Resident Evil Revelations, the HD version. This is the port of the 3DS game that came to PC and consoles. Um, I don't know. I gave Last of Us Part 1, I believe I gave it an. I don't remember what I gave it actually. I think I gave it an A tier. But anyway, Resident Evil Revelations, it was a bit of a rocky start for this one. And you know why? It's because I didn't have any ammo by the end of the first stream. And you know why? Because I didn't know that you could scan the environment to find ammunition. So once I started doing that, then we had a plethora of ammunition, and I never felt the need to scramble again, which is good. Because that first stream started off in such a bad way, I almost thought that we weren't going to finish this game. But when the second stream came around and I learned that you could scan the environment to find ammunition, that's when the game turned around and it became a lot better. And by the third stream, I was kind of, maybe I was falling head over heels for it at times. It's still like a janky kind of Resident Evil game at times. The whole dodge system doesn't always work. And the story and the voice acting is a bit like, I mean, the story's fine, but the voice acting is kind of like, oh, okay, this is definitely by that time a Resident Evil game that was ported from the 3DS. So yeah, I think that in general, I think it is worth going back and playing the HD version. And I guess it's good. I mean, you could go back and play the 3DS version or the DS version too. I'm sure that that's fine. But the HD PC port, it's pretty good. It feels like a Resident Evil game from the era. It's more closely related to like 5 or 6, which is more action packed and stuff like that. But it has those moments that's more survival horror, which is actually really nice. You start off on this like cruise ship and you're scavenging for ammunition and fighting off these mutated creatures. And I think that in general they did a good job with that ship layout and making it kind of feel like the older Assassin's Creed, I'm sorry, older Resident Evil games, where you're kind of like in a space for a while and you're opening new doors and stuff like that with keys and different gadgets. And I like that about this game. The Resident Evil Revelations does that really well. And there's still like those really crazy action-packed sequences. They're mostly in the when you switch characters, and they give you like these really high-powered guns and stuff like that to defend yourself. That's usually the parts of the game that get more action-packed. Like there's a whole Gatling gun section with Chris, and which was fine. But then you do it again at the end of the game with Jill, and it's like really cool. It's like this really cool boss fight, and it's a really nice visual on the monster coming off of the ship and stuff like that. So, there's some stuff that really makes me go, "Oh, that's cool. I love that." There's of course other things that I didn't really like about the game in general. Like I said before, the dodging mechanic is just really dumb. Like there's no other way to get around enemies unless you dodge, and you have to like, on my controller it was holding A and pressing forward at the right time, and it really wouldn't work too well, especially when I was trying to do like a back step. It would just make Jill turn around, do a 180, and that's not what I was wanting. And then there's also this other system of like, you can put like these upgrades on your guns, which is good. Don't get me wrong, I put the highest level of attack on my sniper rifle, which made the rest of the game a breeze after that. But there's some weapons that can't get like more firepower or whatever, and I find that kind of bizarre, especially when you can't increase the fire rate of like a machine gun or something like that. I don't know, just kind of weird. And there's some upgrades that you get that are just completely useless. I don't know why they would even give them to you. Like there's some specific ones for specific weapons that I felt like didn't even need to be in the game. Like having your shotgun be a smaller spread. Like I don't really need that. Like I'm not gonna use that because there's other better attachments, other better upgrades. This is also a very unique Resident Evil game in the fact that you actually swim in water. Like there's actually sections where you are underwater and you're swimming. The ship like will sometimes take on water, and you gotta swim around in an area and dodge these like shrimp monsters, and that was kind of fun. That was kind of cool. The final boss fight for the game was kind of, I don't know. I think the design of the enemy was cool, but the story was kind of ridiculous because the I mean, kind of the main enemy, quote unquote, of the game is like monologuing, and all Jill and Chris need to say is like, "Hey, we're not a part of the FDA or whatever they were called," and the guy would have been like, "Oh, okay," but instead they didn't say anything until after he had started mutating. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're gonna fight this guy. Which, of course, it's a video game, so you're gonna fight the guy. But yeah, the ending boss had this gimmick where you could only shoot his heart when it was open, like he had a cavity in his chest that opened up. I thought it was fine. It was a breeze with the sniper rifle. It just took a few tries because I was. Oh, maybe I did it. Did I do it in one try? I think I did it in two tries, because the first try, he like he got, yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember at this point. There was another boss that had like a bunch of armor on him, and you could shoot his head or the weak point on his arm. That was like a big mallet. That was kind of cool. I liked that fight. They gave you plenty of ammo for it, which is nice. Ended up not really needing to use it because my sniper rifle was so powerful at the time, but you know, still a pretty cool boss fight. There was another character, Rachel, who transforms into a monster. Probably one of the weirdest amalgamations of a busty woman and a tentacle monster. Rule 34, people unite, I guess. But yeah, that was kind of an interesting design there, and her mechanic of like going away and coming back was kind of cool, I guess. One of the first bosses you fight is like this big bulbous dude with a chainsaw on him, pretty much. That was a pretty annoying fight because the enemies in the area were non-stop respawning, which was super annoying. It really just burned through ammunition, especially at a time when I didn't really have ammunition. The nice thing is after a while, some of the ammo would respawn, so I guess that's fine. But yeah, having the unlimited enemies spawning was just a bit much, in my opinion. So in the end, I gave Resident Evil Revelations a B. I thought it was actually fairly good by the end of it. If I just knew scanning the environment gave you ammo at the beginning, I would have been much more happy with our first live stream. But as it stands, pretty competent Resident Evil game, especially this HD version. Sure, there's some weird stuff in there that were made for the 3DS that doesn't really translate over well, but I don't really hold that against the game too much. So yeah, I think a B is a nice place to put the game. So there you go. All right, folks, let's move on to the next part of the show, which is What's in the News. Okay, Microsoft has announced that it's officially taken Activision Blizzard. They're now a part of the Microsoft family. The UK Competition and Markets Authority approved the deal earlier on Friday, and Xbox has set the deadline to October 18th to finalize this acquisition. So Phil Spencer came out and said, "I've long admired the work of Activision Blizzard and King and the impact they've had on gaming, entertainment, and pop culture, whether it was late nights spent playing Diablo 4's campaign with friends from start to finish, gathering the entire family in the rec room for our weekly Guitar Hero night, or going on an epic streak in Candy Crush. Some of my most memorable gaming moments came from experiences their studios have created. It is incredible, and we welcome them to the legendary teams of Xbox." So, yeah, I guess after this whole debacle, Xbox whining and bitching and whatever, the UK finally let it go through. Even though they still had some issues with the acquisition, they did let it go through in the end. So this means that Xbox now owns Activision, Blizzard, and King, the people behind things like Candy Crush. In a statement, they say that work has begun to bring Activision Blizzard games over to Xbox Game Pass. Now, I do not think that the new Call of Duty will come to Xbox Game Pass anytime soon. Probably by next year when the first official game under Xbox's banner is coming around, we'll get that. But yeah, they definitely are probably going to want to bring as many games over as they possibly can, whether that means that Crash Bandicoot games and Diablo and Overwatch, and well, I guess Overwatch is free, but there's a whole bunch of games that they could bring over that would be great. For it would definitely add more to the to the it would add more value to Xbox Game Pass for sure. Now I don't know if they're gonna raise the prices again of Game Pass. I mean, obviously this was a huge acquisition, lots of money being thrown around, and they already did raise the prices just a small bit. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And then there's a nice little chart here that shows all the different studios that Activision, Blizzard, and King have that are now under the Xbox banner. So Activision, under the Call of Duty branch, they have Treyarch, Infinity Ward, and Sledgehammer, with High Moon, Toys for Bob, and Beanox helping out on the Warzone and stuff like that. And underneath each of these studios, it shows that Toys for Bob has worked on Skylanders, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro. Beanox has done Tony Hawk, one of the Crash Bandicoot games, and Call of Duty ports on the PC. High Moon has done Transformers, Destiny, Call of Duty. And then below them, you have like Raven, which is working on Call of Duty Warzone. Demonware, which is working on, which is a group developing multiplayer tech and matchmaking technologies. Another one called Digital Legends, which works on Call of Duty Mobile. Activision Shanghai, which is a support studio. Solid State Studios, which is a support studio for Call of Duty on mobile. The MLG Group, which is the Activision branch for esports. Activision Capture Studio, which does state-of-the-art motion capture. Activision Blizzard Media, which is an advertising branch. And then Activision Research, which is a central branch, which is probably their base of operations. Underneath the Blizzard banner, they have a Blizzard Albany, Austin, Boston, Seoul, Taipei, whatever that is, Sydney, Shanghai, and Cork. All of them work on Blizzard titles like Overwatch and stuff like that. And then they also show off that Blizzard does also own the Battle.net, which has games like StarCraft, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, and more. And then King, which is mostly a mobile company. Of course, Candy Crush is their big IP. There's 11 studios that work around the world on Candy Crush, believe it or not. So there's King Barcelona, Stockholm, London, Berlin, Malmo, Malta, Dublin, San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York. And they have a bunch of other little mobile games underneath them as well. So as we can see, that's a huge chunk of new studios and new game IPs that the Xbox can work with. And of course, not listed here is all the games and stuff that are owned by Activision's IPs. So like Guitar Hero, Prototype. There's so many games that you can probably name off the top of your head that I can't think of right now that are under the Activision banner that could be revived. There's already rumors going around that Guitar Hero may be coming back, which is great. Which I do love me some Guitar Hero. But we'll see what they eventually do. I am hoping for maybe a new Crash Bandicoot or a new Spyro, something like that. This chart also maps out the other stuff that Xbox owns, like 343, Double Fine, Mojang, Ninja Theory, Rare, Obsidian, etc. They also have Bethesda, which of course Bethesda has its 4 studios, and then id Software, Tango Games, Machine Games, Arcane, stuff like that. So, yeah, a pretty cool chart. If you want to check out this chart, it's on Klobrile, Klobrile at Klobrile, I think it's called, or their name is. They have a nice little chart there. So, Xbox is officially, I guess you could call it a monopoly in the gaming world at this point. Sony definitely doesn't own this many IPs or this many studios. So, there you go. And just to kind of top off the Xbox talk, Xbox has confirmed that any captures that you make, like saving captures of gameplay, they will be deleted after 90 days. And on January 2024, they will begin deleting anything older than 90 days. So if you need to, you can always plug a USB drive into your console and transfer stuff over from the capture locations. Apparently, there was something like legally that they had to do. They had to. I think it's something legal for why they needed to delete them after a set amount of time. So Xbox received them. People who own an Xbox received this message on the day that they were pushing this through. So it says, due to a new policy starting October 1st, 2023, existing and new captures on the Xbox network will be automatically deleted after 90 days. The first deletions will start January 2024. To back up your game captures before they're gone, select game start, get started below, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So yeah, I'm surprised they didn't do this before. I think PlayStation doesn't have an automatic delete thing. It just will tell you when your hard drive is full. So maybe we'll be seeing something like that from PlayStation in the near future, but I guess we'll see. We'll see. All right, so Sony has announced the PlayStation 5 Slim. It's been officially unveiled. So a lot of the kind of like small leaks were right about this new console iteration. I didn't talk about any of them because rumors are rumors, and I don't like really talking about rumors unless they're super strong rumors. But Sony announced that the new PS5 model called the PS5 Slim will be launching in November this year in the United States, with other countries following. This update has a smaller form factor, so it's a compared to the PS5, like the original version, it's actually a little bit shorter and a bit narrower, like lengthwise, I guess you'd say. But anyway, it also has a detachable disk drive. So if you don't want to buy the digital, I'm sorry, if you don't want to buy the disc version, but down the road you do want the disc version, you can add that on for a separate cost. Right now, the Blu-ray player PS5 bundle is $500, and the digital edition is $450, which is kind of crazy. The disc drive itself will be about $80. So there you go. If I'm not mistaken, this is actually more expensive than the base version of the digital console, at least. Maybe not the disc drive model, but that's kind of crazy. In the video, they show that the PS5 has the new PS5 Slim has reduced its volume output by 30%, which is nice because my PS5, I don't know about you guys, makes quite a lot of noise at times. Mostly when I'm just loading a game, though. The side panels have been separated into 4 segments, with the top 2 being a glossy finish and the bottom 2 being a regular matte. You'll be able to buy the new PS5 model with or without the disc drive, as I already stated. This will also come with a slight increase to storage capacity of a 1 terabyte SSD, which is built in, and you can still upgrade to have a bonus expansion slot on there as well. So it's planned that this is going to be a horizontally sitting console out of the box. You have to actually buy the vertical stand separately for $30, which is kind of insane, seeing as the original PS5 had a vertical stand included with the console. Kind of crazy. I don't know why they wouldn't just include this, but whatever. So there you go. I think this version is a little bit better than the original PS5, of course, having the ability to attach a disc drive if you so desire, later on in the console's life if you want that. But I think that the price point is a bit odd, especially with the digital only version. Maybe that's just showing that they put better technology into it. I don't know. But I will say that I'm not going to be picking this up unless I need another PS5 later down the road if my current one craps out for whatever reason. But this will actually be the only model. They've confirmed that this will be the only model. It'll actually replace the original one once inventory of the older models is depleted. So they aren't going to be manufacturing any Generation 1 PS5s anymore. It's only going to be the Slims from the future onward, which is different from, well, I guess it's not really different from the original PS4, because once the PS4 Pro came out, they didn't make any more original PS4s, so kind of the same business model there. So, yeah, just in time for Christmas, you can get your new PS5 Slim. I think the size difference is the best part of this, and of course the noise reduction. But I think that the big L comes with the price point and the fact that you have to buy a vertical stand, separately, which I would need. I think most people would need the vertical stand. I think that the horizontally sitting PlayStation is still going to be pretty big. I believe it's about the size of a legal piece of paper, which is 11 by 14. So, yeah, that's a pretty big piece of hardware to have horizontally. That takes up a lot of space. So, whatever. Like I said, I won't be buying this at least right away, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I think that in general it looks better. It looks fine. I just there's some things that make me go, interesting. All right, apparently the Gollum developer Daedalic Entertainment was poorly treated by their publishing studio. So much so that the publishing studio released the apology letter for them on their Twitter account. So Nacon, the publisher, apparently used ChatGPT to write the apology note for Lord of the Rings Gollum. And if you don't recall, Lord of the Rings Gollum was misspelled in the apology letter. They called it Lord of the Ring Gollum. And after looking at this a couple more times, you can definitely tell that it was AI generated. Like there's some AI things in here that this was definitely like either partially or fully written by an AI. On top of that, staff put out a video called "Why Gollum Had to Fail," a 40-minute video. This describes how it all went wrong for Daedalic, which was best known for point-and-click adventure games. So the budget for the game was roughly 15 million euro, which is about 15.9 million US dollars. Most of the staff had little to no experience creating 3D action games, let alone AAA versions of those. With a minuscule budget, the studio could not secure talent that was necessary to create the game professionally. The staff were also expected to crunch. Allegedly, this had been a common occurrence at the studio since its foundation in 2007. They said that the particular pressure was applied to interns and junior staff who were not as likely to assess the level of stress as critical or unusual. The CEO, named Karsten Fichelman, and the COO, Stefan Harms, were singled out as the principal instigators of the crunch time climate. Accounts of Fichelman shouting at employees who afterwards only spoke in whispers were recalled. Daedalic denied the allegations put forward to them by Game2, the YouTube channel that it was released on, claimed the company has a friendly working atmosphere. So I guess only time will tell if these allegations are true. And sure, maybe it would be kind of funny if they actually did get ChatGPT to put out a apology letter, but at this point, it's just kind of pathetic, especially with all the other things being alleged against them. So, yeah, not a great look for Daedalic. And, no, I'm sorry, not a good look for Nacon. Still, I mean, Daedalic also, they also made a pretty bad game. But I kind of less... I mean, I think I even said this back when I was reviewing the game. I don't really blame Daedalic as so much so as the publisher, Nacon, who pushed the game out too quickly. I mean, obviously there's so much wrong with Lord of the Rings Gollum. It's hard to believe that this even was released in the state that it was in. But and even though halfway through the game I thought the game got better, Lord of the Rings Gollum is going to go down in history as one of those infamous bad games. And unlike a lot of bad games, I don't believe this one is going to be so bad that it's good in the future, or people are going to look back at it and be like, actually it wasn't that bad. No, I think this one's actually going in the dumpster. Speaking of going into the dumpster, Unity's CEO and president has retired after the whole policy debacle at the studio, or I'm sorry, the software developer. Reported by GameIndustry.biz, the change is effective immediately. James M. Whitehurst is stepping down as CEO and president, while the firm seeks out a permanent replacement. Rolef Botha, the lead independent Unity board director, has been appointed chairman for the time being. Whitehurst said this regarding this situation: "I am confident that Unity is well positioned to continue enhancing its platform, strengthening its community of customers, developers, and partners, and focusing on its growth and profitability goals. I look forward to working closely with the board and our talented global team to execute on our strategy, and I anticipate the seamless transition." Meanwhile, Riccatello is the person who departed it. Whitehurst is an interim CEO. I read that wrong. So CEO and President John Riccitello is stepping down, but James M. Whitehurst is actually stepping up to be the interim CEO. Roloff Botha is stepping in as the Unity board director, who has been appointed current chairman. Okay, so I read that all wrong. I apologize. So what has Risalito said himself? He said, "It's been a privilege to lead Unity for nearly a decade and serve our employees, customers, developers, and partners, all of whom have been instrumental in the company's growth. I look forward to supporting Unity through the transition and following the company's future success." So yeah, a lot of backlash came around with the policy changes, which would have had installs of the game charging the developers in bulk sums. Obviously, this, you know, was reversed, which was good, but there's still some crappy things about what happened that are still not resolved. Funny enough, this is the same guy who was a part of EA during its whole part of its life, where it was trying to money grub, like with Mass Effect 3's Day 1 DLC and loot boxes galore. So I'm not surprised that this guy came into Unity and started to try and nickel and dime people. But yeah, we'll see how Unity gets run after this. Obviously, there's a bit of a question mark on the future of the company, but hopefully they get someone who's a bit more savvy in terms of, I don't know, respectability. All right, Best Buy will no longer have physical media, but they're only talking about movies. They confirmed that video games are still going to be sold physically at the store for the time being, of course. So you'll be able to purchase any Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo games at the brick and mortar stores. But yeah, Blu-rays and DVDs are not going to be at the store anymore. Now, how often do I see people browsing the movies at Best Buy? Not very often. I actually haven't even went to the movie section of my local Best Buy in quite some time. I haven't bought a movie from my local Best Buy in quite some time. So it's understandable that they're taking away that physical media. Maybe eventually down the road, video games will also be removed from the store, but I do think that they sell enough physical video games that they will be keeping it for some time. I mean, I always buy my games physically if I can, and I usually get them from Best Buy, but I usually order them for pickup or have them shipped directly to my house, so maybe sometime in the future, Best Buy will work kind of like how Netflix used to work, where they ship out. There's just a shipping company. They just ship out games. But I guess we'll see what happens in the future. But as of right now, no more movies, no more DVDs. But there will still be video games. The Princess Peach Showtime game had cover art shown off, but it's already been tweaked by Nintendo. They have actually changed Peach's facial expression in a few different places on the cover art. So in the original version, Peach kind of looks the same in all of her different poses, except for like the cooking one and the one where she's holding the sword. But the one where she's like fighting as a kung fu master and like her regular appearance on the cover, or kind of like that regular kind of expression. But in the new version, she looks more closely related to the movie version of her character, which actually, if you put a still on the screen of her face from the movie where she like beats Mario at the training course, it kind of looks like that for the cover. Her face is a bit more scrunched and not as elongated. And then on the Kung Fu version of her character, she looks more angry, like she's actually trying to hurt someone rather than she's kind of expressionless. So I think in general this is a nice change. I think that she looks better with having more expression. It is kind of odd to see her look more like her movie counterpart, though, which, I don't know, maybe Nintendo decided to do that since, I mean, the movie was so popular, just a little tweak to her character, I suppose. But I guess we'll see in the near future how the game is. This is still slated to release in 2024. All right. President Yoshimi Yasuda, who is behind the Lollipop Chainsaw remake, announced that the PS5, Xbox, etc. re-release was now going to be a remaster instead of a remake. They have changed the game design based on your request, he says in a weird tweet that was posted the other day. So now a Lollipop Chainsaw Repop will be a remaster instead of a remake, meaning that it's going to have the same visuals, probably up-resed a little bit, but it's not going to be a from-the-ground rebuilding of the game anymore, which, I don't know. I think that any game from the Xbox 360 era or PS3 era kind of needs a bit of a kind of needs some fine tuning on it. I'm sure it'll play just fine if it is still using the older style of gameplay, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine. I think that from the get go, maybe the remake Monkier was incorrectly used. I mean, obviously this is translated from Japanese, so there might have been a mistranslation in there, or maybe a miss said thing. So, but yeah. So now the game is due to be out in 2024 after a bit of a delay last month. So that's I mean the delay is probably because they scrapped the remake and they're just doing the remaster now. So we'll see how it all works out, and I'm excited to see some gameplay footage when eventually that comes around. And then finally, for today in the news, Lego has revealed the Animal Crossing launch sets. There's going to be 5 sets launched across the board here. The first one is Julian's Birthday, which is going to be 170 pieces for about $15. You'll get the Julian minifig and a little grassy area with some tables and trees and banners and presents and stuff like that. Also, Bunny's Outdoor Activities. You'll get the Bunny minifigure. It's going to be a 164 piece set for $20. And this one's more of like a campsite with some various Animal Crossing things. Captain's Island Boat Tour. It's going to be $30. This is a 233 piece set with Captain and Marshall minifigures. You have Captain's Boat and a bit of a dock and some sandy areas to go around. You also have Isabel's house visit. It looks like she comes to Fauna's house, and you get the Isabel and Fauna minifigures. This one's going to be $40. It's a 389 piece set. Seems to be a bit overpriced, seeing as it's just a house with some grass patches around it, but I digress. And then finally, Nook's Cranny and Rosie's House. This is a 535 piece set for $75. You'll get Tom Nook and the Rosie minifigures, and this essentially is both Tom's store and Rosie's house in one, which is once again, Lego I think is a bit overpriced in general. This seems like it should be like a $50 set, but it's an $80 set almost. So yeah, if you're excited for this, I'm sure that you'll want to spend the money for it. Of course, me personally, I'm not like huge into Animal Crossing, so this isn't going to be a set that I want to buy. I mean, I really haven't bought Lego in quite some time. I reference just how expensive Lego sets are getting. Like just getting the TIE Fighter from Lego is like $50 normally. On sale it's like $30, which is what I would want to buy it for. But there's other sets that I would like that are just like so expensive, and they don't seem like that much. Like getting the X-wing, like $80 for that. Like I think I bought it for like 50 back in the day, something like that. So yeah, I don't know. That is up for you to decide. The sets look fine, all things considered. And if you want to check out the trailer for this new set of Lego, you can go to Lego's YouTube channel. You want to check that out. All right, let's switch over to what. Okay, Mortal Kombat 1 has released the Omni-Man trailer, showing off Omni-Man in all his Omni glory. Of course, this is the character from the hit Amazon Prime show, Invincible. He has a lot of moves that reference Invincible. I'm sure people who have watched the show can point them out to me exactly. But on Twitter, I did see some things, like there's this fatality where he holds the character in the subway and the train goes by and he's being hit by a bunch of people. There's also one where he squeezes Liu Kang's eyes and they pop out of his skull. Pretty brutal. Omni-Man's moveset looks like it's a lot of grab techniques and I guess I would say parry techniques, but it looks like a lot of grab techniques and stuff like that. So kind of cool, kind of reminiscent of like Cyborg from Injustice, I guess. But yeah, he's going to be coming in November 2023, and they revealed that Tremor is going to be the cameo associated with him. So he'll have a new Tremor will be out there and new for the cameo slots as well. It's official. You can now officially preload Marvel's Spider-Man 2 on your PlayStation 4 or 5 console. So you can start playing immediately when it eventually drops on the 20th of October. The file size is about 86 gigabytes, so you're going to need to make some room on your consoles if you haven't already. I am getting the game physically, so I'm not going to preload it, of course. A game like this I'm so excited for. I'm definitely going to get a physical version of it. But if you are a digital owner, you can start playing it, I believe, on midnight on the 20th of October 20th. So there you go. Very exciting. Just a warning, though, and I'm not going to be talking about probably any more Spider-Man stuff for the coming. Well, I mean the game will be released by next Saturday. So, but just up until up until the game release or until you get it, definitely be wary of spoilers and stuff like that. They're probably going to be rampant on places like YouTube and Twitter. Definitely be careful of YouTube thumbnails also spoiling things as well. So I personally have not really watched anything Spider-Man related in the last couple months on my own personal YouTube channel. I've been using a guest account to watch Spider-Man stuff because it'll start recommending you Spider-Man stuff if you start watching Spider-Man stuff, and that can get you in some trouble. On Twitter, you can also mute the term Spider-Man 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, stuff like that, just in case you are worried about that. And then they also revealed that Vinny Jr., a Madrid forward soccer player, or football, is designing a suit for Spider-Man 2, which might be kind of cool. No real information about it or what it's going to look like. We just know that it's been confirmed that he is the Brazilian footballer, is promising something very, very extraordinary for the game. In a social media post, he also added, "If I had a suit with Brazil's colors, it would be cool, and the people of Brazil will love it." So it's unclear if he's like making a Brazilian flair kind of Spider-Man suit or if he's doing his own thing. I guess we'll find out when the Spider-Man 2 suits are revealed. All right. Earth Defense Force 6 is finally getting a Western release in 2024. It was originally released in Japan in 2022, so it's been quite a while since the original release of the game. If you don't know what Earth Defense Force is, it's pretty much a wave defender, third-person shooter where you fight alien insects and robots and stuff like that. It looks like they've downgraded the graphics, in my opinion. It looks more like a mobile game than anything else at this point, which last game I played was Earth Defense Force like 4 or something like that, and I thought that one looked good. This one just kind of looks, in general, graphically bad. The gameplay looks fine, don't get me wrong, but yeah, graphically it looks like we're going back in time here. Yeah, there's going to be classes. So the Ranger, Air Raider, Wing Diver, and Fencer are coming around with all new weapons and missions to be played. So this will be arriving spring 2024 if you want to check out that. Speaking of insects, there's a new game called Empire of the Ants coming around in 2024 as well. I would say this is a Pikmin-esque kind of game where you play as like the queen or the leader of a colony of ants, and you essentially guide them through areas, collecting food and battling animals like insects, like a praying mantis at one point they showed. It looks like there's also possibly diplomatic things in here, like you have to combine colonies because you're trying to remake your own colony. Now, I'm not a huge fan of ants. I don't like how the way ants look, of course. But this game is actually quite interesting. I think this game actually looks kind of good. I mean, graphically it looks stunning from what they've showed. But the gameplay, I mean, of just being like this little ant and going along these crazy, like intricate and very well designed areas, kind of has piqued my interest, you know? In a blurb on the blog post by PlayStation, it says, As the Ant Savior, your mission is to lead your people rebuild their home, ensure their safety, prosperity, and conquer new territories across changing seasons. Explore, strategize, confront, and engage in diplomacy to triumph over the myriad challenges that lie ahead. Maybe they meant to say many challenges that lie ahead, but yeah, it's definitely like a photorealistic Unreal Engine 5 type game, but it's definitely in the same vein as the Pikmin game, so there you go. Apparently, this is based on a French novel by Bernard Werber, who I'm not sure what the original work is all about, but maybe it's like a story of an ant colony. I don't know. um, so yeah, there we go. That's coming in 2024. Looks kind of interesting. Dead Island 2 is getting its first expansion, House, soon. They released a couple of little trailers about the location that you're going to be going to in this random cul-de-sac. But House is going to be released on the 2nd of November. There's just some brief gameplay footage of it. No, like, they didn't show any of the enemies or zombies in these little gameplay things. But it looks like you're going into some sort of, like, giant complex that has, like, a cul-de-sac built into it, which is kind of crazy. And this techno cult is, like, experimenting on humans or something like that. Or maybe they're experimenting on the zombies to give them technical, like technology abilities. I don't know. But this is the first of 2 planned DLCs for the game. The second one, Sola Festival, is going to be in 2024. If you purchase the expansion pass, you'll gain access to both for about $30. So yeah, in a blurb by Deep Silver, they said, "Lose yourself. You're gonna lose yourself in a surreal psycho horror dreamscape as you investigate a mysterious cult in Malibu. House takes players to a completely new story where a secret billionaire's techno death cult fights for survival amidst the zombie apocalypse." So there you go. If you want to check that out, November 2nd, Dead Island 2's DLC. All right, a PS1 cult classic called Hogs of War is being remade with a Kickstarter campaign. So apparently, Hogs of War, I didn't know this, but apparently Hogs of War plays a lot like Worms before Worms 3D even existed. It secured its cult hit status thanks to its silly British humor and fun multiplayer battles. So in a video by Hogs of War Lardcore on YouTube, they pretty much just broke down all the different reasons for making the remaster of the game or remake of the game, and all the different tiers that the Kickstarter will entail, and all the different goals that they have for the game as well. And he uses like this little cartoon pig to explain all this. So the project will start up on the 17th of October, and it will run until the 16th of November. The first goal is $150,000. The stretch goal will be even more, apparently. If you help them out, you'll get, of course, a copy of the game, and there's some other tiers as well that'll give you stuff. Their stretch goals include online networking, new gameplay options, and a port to PC, along with all the stuff they need to get it working. Yeah, I think I've heard of this game, but I never looked into it because I'm not a huge fan of like the worm stuff. But you know, I mean, if it's a silly British pig game, maybe it'll be fun. I don't know. But no expected release date for it yet, just a Kickstarter announcement. If you want to check that out, go over the Kickstarter and check out the goals. Frog Detective, The Entire Mystery, is coming to PS5, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch later this month on October 26. This is a group of indie games that are relatively short, that have you playing as the Frog Detective himself, and you solve mysteries. The PC version has high praises. I actually own the first 2 games, haven't played them yet. But the Frog trilogy will be all 3 games that have been released already. And there will also be a console exclusive mini game called the Frog Detective Scooter, which is a Tony Hawk inspired arcade game in which you explore a skate park and pull off tricks on a scooter. Kind of weird, but also a fun group of games. If I've read my reviews correctly. So if you want to check this out, I definitely would recommend that. It's coming October 26th. I don't know if there is a price point yet for the game. It's probably going to be like, I don't know, $20, $30, something like that. I'm sure it'll be relatively reasonable. All right, Pac-Man. He's coming back with another Battle Royale. This time it's not Pac-Man 99, but it's called Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle Chomp Champs, which is the Battle Royale spin on the game. So instead of battling against 99 people online and kind of like sending enemies to them, you'll actually be battling them in real time and on various maps. There will be 64 players who all get 64 maps. I'm sorry, each player gets their own map. So there will be 64 maps with 64 players on the entirety of the game, all connected via tunnels on the edges of each, kind of like the original game. Essentially, the battle will last until one person is standing and has eaten the most pellets, fruit, and other Pac-Men. As you eat more, your Pac-Man will grow in size, and you'll be able to eat other Pac-Man as you go through things. Gradually, the mazes will start being eliminated, and there will only be one left remaining. There will be cross-play with this, so if you want to, you can team up with players across other consoles and platforms. There will be a bunch of power-ups to use, including a shield and I guess there's a speed boost one as well. And there will be plenty of cosmetic items to dress up your Pac-Man the way that you want to. This game will come in early 2024. So if you want to check out the trailer, it's on Bandai Namco's YouTube channel. It actually looks not too bad, I'm not going to lie. It actually looks kind of fun. And finally for today, here are 15 games that are available to download starting October 17th on the PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers. So the PlayStation Plus Extras games are Gotham Knights, The Dark Pictures Anthology House of Ashes, Disco Elysium The Final Cut, Far Changing Tides, Gungrave Gore, Elite Dangerous, Dead Island Definitive Collection, Alien Isolation, Outlast 2, Eldest Souls, and Roki. And then on the premium tiers, you're getting Tekken 6, which is a PSP game, Soul Calibur Broken Destiny, which is another PSP game, Ape Escape Academy, which is another PSP game, and then IQ Final, which is a PS1 classic game. I don't know what IQ Final is, but maybe it'll be kind of cool. I don't know. There's the other games like Tekken 6, Soul Calibur, Ape Escape. Yeah, I mean, should be pretty cool. I don't know. I've never played any of the PSP games, so don't quote me on. Don't at me for any of those games reviews. But yeah, I mean, this is a good collection of games, especially in the extra tier. You get a couple of Halloween themed games, spooky games in here, like Dark Pictures Anthology, Dead Island, Alien Isolation, Outlast. Even though I'm not a huge fan of Outlast 2, it's still a fine spooky game, I guess. As for other games like Gotham Knights, I don't know about. I mean, you can try that one out at least. Disco Elysium, I mean, that's a really good game. Far Changing Tides was pretty fun. And, I always liked Dead Island the definitive, the remaster of Dead Island is actually pretty good. So I was just trying that out at least. It does stumble halfway through though, so, be prepared for that. All right, before my voice gives out completely, let's go ahead and switch over to the to the final part of the show, which is Guess That Song. Which, as most of you know, is everyone's favorite part of the show. Oh my god. Where I play a small snippet of a soundtrack of a song. Oh my god, what's going on with me? Holy shit, I've been talking for too long. The part of the show where I give you a small snippet of a song and you have to tell me the song's name and what game it came from. We've been doing horror games or spooky games for the past month. So let's go ahead and hear what today's song is right now. All right. If you know the name of the song and the game that it came from, please let me know in the Discord by commenting in the Ferret64 section, and I will give you a super reaction if you are correct. And if you want, just comment in the latest episode on YouTube, and just let me know what the song is. I'll give you a heart and a congratulations, of course. Anyone can play. Don't forget that if you enjoy this podcast, maybe not today's episode, but if you enjoy the podcast in general, make sure you give it a like on YouTube. Make sure you rate it 5 stars on Spotify or give it a review on Apple Podcasts. I would very much appreciate that because it helps with the discoverability of the podcast on multiple platforms. If you want to check out anything else I do, I stream on Twitch on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We just finished our recent game, which is which was Resident Evil Revelations. The next game we're going to play is called Silt, I think it's called, which is a game that came out last year. It's kind of a Limbo-inspired game where you play as this diver who can possess various aquatic animals to help him get through the dark and spooky cave system that you're in. So should be kind of fun, should be kind of spooky. So we'll be playing that on Monday if you want to check that out. Anything else, it's all at Yemmy the Ferret, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, etc. I also run another podcast called Film Freaks with a Z, where we talk about movies. The latest episode is about All Dogs Go to Heaven. The next episode, releasing next week on Friday, is about The Benchwarmers, if you want to check that out. Also, you can check out my Yemmy the Ferret VODs channel, where I upload the latest streams. After I finish a game, I usually upload the streams about a week or so after it. And I also I sometimes will do shorts on there as well, if you so desire to watch those. All right, before I completely fall over and die, I don't know why, because I'm not sick anymore. I'm just scratchy in the throat because I've been talking so long after being sick. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you all. Have a good rest of your week or weekend. I'm Yemmy the Ferret, and I'm out of here. I'll talk at you next week. Bye-bye. The Ferret 64 podcast is owned and edited by Yemmy the Ferret. The song Nightshade, used in the intro and outro, is owned by Adhesive Wombat. Small sound clips during the podcast were made by Yemmy the Ferret. News sources include NintendoLife.com, PushSquare.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions video game related are my own. Thank you for listening.